Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a pretty mind-bending idea. What if the world you experience every day isn't, fixed? What if you are the one actively shaping your reality, moment by moment, with the unseen energy of your own thoughts and feelings? I mean, have you ever looked around and wondered about this? Why do some people just seem to have it all figured out, like they're effortlessly attracting success, while other people feel totally stuck? Is it just luck, pure talent, or just grinding harder than everyone else? Well, the source material we're looking at today suggests maybe not. Maybe there's a hidden mechanism at play, a fundamental rule of the game that we can all learn to use. All right, so let's get right to the core idea from our source. The whole premise is this: your thoughts, they aren't just these quiet, private things happening inside your skull. No, the idea here is that they're actual, measurable electromagnetic frequencies. They literally radiate out from you and interact with the world around you. So, how does that even work? Well, to explain it, the source draws a really cool parallel to quantum physics, specifically something called the observer effect. Now, in the wild world of quantum mechanics, just the act of looking at a tiny particle can actually change what it does. Crazy, right? So, the author proposes that our own consciousness does something similar, but on a much bigger scale. The idea is that by simply observing our world, we're not just watching it, we're actively participating in how it all takes shape. And here's the kicker. The source argues this isn't just some nice metaphor. It's presented as a consistent, predictable process. The idea is that your internal state, your dominant thoughts and feelings, creates this kind of energetic frequency. And that frequency goes out and attracts experiences that match it, almost with mathematical precision. Okay, so if our thoughts are broadcasting this signal out into the universe, the next logical question is, how do we make that signal stronger? How do we turn up the volume and make it super clear? Well, this is where things get really interesting. The source introduces this incredible connection between our mind and our heart. And get this, there's some actual data behind this. The source points to research showing that the heart's electromagnetic field is about 60 times stronger in amplitude than the brain's. 60 times. That's not a small difference. We're talking about the heart being a literal powerhouse of energy. So this is where the magic really happens. When you get your brain's clear intention, what you want, to line up with your heart's elevated emotion, like feeling pure gratitude or love, something amazing happens. Your energy signature becomes coherent. It's not all fuzzy and scattered anymore. It's like tuning a radio to a crystal clear station. And that signal, it becomes exponentially more powerful, broadcasting a super strong message out into the universe. Okay, great. So we've got this incredible power when our thoughts and feelings align. But how do we actually do that? How do we consciously direct it? Well, the source points us straight to the science of neuroplasticity, which is just a fancy way of saying our brain has this amazing ability to literally change and rewire itself our entire lives. And the process is actually pretty straightforward. It boils down to this. You take a clear intention, you know exactly what you want, and you combine it with an elevated emotion. And this is key. You have to feel like it's already happened. Feel that joy, that gratitude right now. When you do that, the source says, you literally start to rewire your brain. You're building new neural pathways that, get this, allow you to see opportunities and solutions that were completely invisible to you before. All right, I know this can sound a little abstract, so let's make it super concrete. The source gives a great example, the story of a guy named Chester. He decided to put one of these ideas to the test, and, well, the results were pretty remarkable. So, Chester. This guy was basically living in a constant state of stress and worry. Sound familiar? He comes across this idea of a daily gratitude practice. And honestly, he's super skeptical. But he figures, what have I got to lose? So he starts. And at first, he says he felt totally silly, just forcing himself to write down really basic stuff like, I'm grateful for clean water, or I have a bed. And the important part is, for the first few days, absolutely nothing in his outside world changed. But he stuck with it, and then things started to shift. After a few weeks of doing this every single day, he noticed these subtle changes. Not in his job, not in his bank account, but in his perception. Suddenly his coworkers didn't seem so annoying. His small apartment started to feel kind of cozy. And that internal shift, that was the first domino. It led him to take new actions, which ultimately transformed his entire life.
his career, his finances, his relationships, the whole shebang.
And Chester's story really shines a light on a much deeper principle from the source material. It's this idea that real, profound change, it doesn't usually come from trying to force an outcome. It comes from allowing it to unfold. It's like shifting from wrestling with reality to, well, dancing with it. Think about it like this. The source lays out two paths. Path one is all about force and control. You're trying to muscle your way to a result, which, let's be honest, usually just creates a ton of resistance. But then there's path two. This one is about permission and trust. It's about allowing things to emerge. And when you do that, you create space for these unexpected solutions and, synchronicities to show up. The kind of stuff your logical mind could never, ever have planned for. Now, let's be super clear here. This idea of surrender isn't about giving up or just being passive. Not at all. It's actually a really active, courageous move. It's about acknowledging hey, maybe you can't control everything. It's about letting go of that death grip you have on one specific outcome and instead allowing a higher intelligence, call it the universe, whatever you want, to work through you. And a lot of the time, it ends up delivering something way better than you were trying to force. So, what's the big picture here? What does all this add up to? Well, when you start to really grasp these principles, it can cause a massive shift. You go from feeling like a victim of your circumstances, like life is just happening to you, to recognizing that you are a conscious creator of your own experience. That is a fundamental change in who you think you are. And really, this is the ultimate takeaway. Your focus, your emotions, your beliefs, they aren't just passive reactions to the world out there. No, they are the very tools you use to co-create your world. Think about that. Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And that energy is the very stuff that shapes your reality. There's that famous quote, which the source brings up, that just says it all perfectly. We don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. Your internal state isn't just some filter that puts a nice color on things. It's the mechanism that is actively selecting and shaping the reality you get to experience every single day. And so, that leaves us with one final and pretty powerful thought to chew on. If your awareness really is this powerful, if your thoughts and feelings are truly the architects of your life, then maybe the most important question you can ever ask yourself isn't what's going to happen to me, but what reality will I choose to create?